Episode 3 starts out with June staring at a bunch of hanged handmaids and Marthas, and she's trying to figure out if she knows any of them. She realizes that she's going to need some allies, and one of them has to be Commander Lawrence. She heads back to the house where Commander Lawrence will be hosting a bunch of other commanders because he doesn't like to travel, so if they're going to have a meeting, he's going to come to them. And he's also gotten a new Martha in the house because he fired the one who kept lying to him. June is trying to make up for her events in the last episode, and she goes to the commander and asks, "Can I get the door?" And he says, "I don't know, can you? I mean, I'm just asking. What's the punishment for a handmaid who answers the door?" And there's an awkward pause, and finally he gets up and says, I guess he can. So Commander Lawrence goes and lets the other commanders in, and one of those commanders is Fred. And this gives June the opportunity to talk to Fred alone, and she says, "Look, you were good to me. And one of the reasons I'm still alive is because of you, but now I'm stuck with him. And you need to tell me everything I need to know that can keep me alive in this household." And Commander Waterford says, "We don't really have any answers for you because we've all been trying to figure him out since day one. All I know is he doesn't like being bored." Now the meeting starts, and June is summoned in to start pouring drinks because the new girl isn't doing it fast enough, and that's when she sees a new commander, and it's Nick the driver. He's been promoted. Congrats, Nick. But this is pretty shocking for June, who had no idea this was happening. Now, the conversation at the moment is about women, and Commander Lawrence says women can be useful, but then he completely embarrasses June and makes her go get a book off the shelf and hand it to him and said, "See? There, she's useful." June leaves the room of commanders that are laughing at her at this point, and it leaves June fuming. So at this point, she's got the art of seduction that she'll try on Commander Lawrence. She heads up to his office and offers him tea, and he says, "Yeah, it's been a long day." And he asks, "Do you think you're good at managing people?" And June says, "No, not really." And he stands up and says, "You look like you'd be good at making friends," and they get pretty close to one another. He also says, "It looks like you'd be good at intimacy," and she thanks him. And once again, they're getting closer and closer. And right before it looks like something's going to happen, he just starts laughing and says, "I can't believe Fred Waterford fell for this." He then poses the question of why is it that women don't want to be used for their bodies, yet they use their bodies to get what they want? June fires back with, maybe it's because men are just easily distracted, and this causes a little bit of a fight between the two. Commander Lawrence brings up what she did at the Waterfords and says, "You literally left that house in ashes," to which June replies with, "I did what I had to do." Commander Lawrence then says, "You think that if you get me to like you, then I'll help you." And she says, "I think you'd actually try to do the right thing. Because you let Emily escape with that baby, and you let the Marthas run a resistance network out of your own house." To which he claims that you need to let the rebels blow off a little steam or they'll blow everything to bits. And in regards to Emily, he says that he knew she was smart and she could help the world better if she was free in Canada rather than in Gilead. And then Commander Lawrence hits a nerve when he says, "If you were smart, you would have gotten on that truck." This really pisses off June, who says, "You know why I couldn't get on that truck." To which Commander Lawrence replies with, "I think I love your daughter more than you do, because I'm trying to replenish the human race for her, and what the hell are you doing?" This pisses off June even more, who screams, "I'm trying to be her mother." And Lawrence just digs the knife deeper and deeper, saying, "You've met her mother, Mrs. Mackenzie, who was a great woman, and even before all this happened, did you know that she sent orphans in Africa when there were orphans in Africa, a bunch of food baskets to help them out? What did you do? All you did was edit esoteric books that nobody was going to read." June starts to walk out but thinks better of it and comes back at him and says, "You used to write those esoteric books that nobody read. And it must suck seeing those numbers on a spreadsheet turn into real people who were executed, and knowing that if nobody had ever read your books, we all would have been better off. It must be hell being a man like you." And you know, I get it. I get why you would hold yourself up in this house all day, playing games with people's heads and doing a good deed every once in a while just so you can sleep at night. And this kind of surprises Lawrence, and the only response he has is to say how tempting it is to invent a humanity for anybody at all, and then forces June to take a drive with him. June and Commander Lawrence drive to what appears to be an airline hangar, and when they get inside, there's a bunch of women in cages, and Commander Lawrence says, "I've been able to save 5 of these women." Now, the rest of them are going to the colonies, but 5 of them will become Marthas. June wants to know why he can't save all of them, because none of them should go to the colonies, but he says there's not enough openings. And not only that, you're going to choose which 5 I save. So here's all the information you need on them. Choose wisely. June immediately says, "I'm not doing that." And Lawrence says, "If you're not going to do it, then they all die." June claims, "I'm not going to be responsible for their deaths. You'll be." Commander Lawrence says, "That's not going to matter to these women. They're going to be dead. At that point, it's not going to matter who's at fault, but clearly it's important to you." And this kind of goes back to June just being selfish. But even after that, June says, "I'm not doing it," and just storms back to the car. As she sits in her room just stewing and thinking about her next move, she gets a visit from her old friend, Nick the driver. I'm sorry, Nick the commander. Nick tells her that he was just promoted to commander and he doesn't know anything about Lawrence and really can't even help her out. This doesn't sit well with June, who says, "You could literally get me transferred out of here to your place and we could be together." And he says, "No, we can't, because I'm going to the front lines of Chicago. Chicago's about to fall, and him going to the front lines, everybody knows. Front lines, you're probably going to die. And this is nothing more than just really a goodbye for the two. He's also not just coming to say goodbye. He's coming for that ass. And boy, does he get it. The next day, June is summoned to the living room, and there is Serena, and she's having a real rough go of it. Her and Fred are basically split up at this point, and her mother has come over to kind of watch over her. Her mother has forced a prayer group on Serena and told the entire prayer group exactly what's going on in her life and her marriage, just being overall really intrusive. And now she has all these people praying for all these intimate things that she doesn't want out there. And this is kind of further proof that her faith in this whole system is waning. After this prayer group, Serena freaks out on her mom and says that she never should have brought these people there, and all you want me to do is go back with Fred. And her mom says the cold truth is, you're really nobody without being Mrs. Waterford. So you guys should just play the happy couple and stop being a petulant child about this. Because the cold reality is there's not really room in this world for a woman like you if you're not Mrs. Waterford. By the way, Fred, if you're wondering where he is, he's at Jezebel's practicing a speech he's going to give to his wife to win her back in front of a fine-looking Gilead hooker. So he's got his priorities straight. But this blow up with her mother has forced Serena to the Lawrence household to meet with June. Serena starts asking June about baby Nicole and what they think baby Nicole is like right now and what she liked and what she didn't like. It's a lot like what June was doing to Mrs. Mackenzie, honestly. At one point, something gets brought up and June says, I think she got that from you. And Serena says, she's not my baby. And June says, the fact that you let her go is the most motherly thing you could do. Is the most motherly thing anyone can do. You guaranteed a better life for your child, and the reality is this world is not going to help women like me and you. We have to look out for each other. We need to stick up for each other. The definition of girl power, the Spice Girls would be thrilled. June says, if you could just think about all the mothers who had their children taken away from them, and Serena cuts her off and says, just like you. And June just kind of nods. June says, there's got to be something you can do. Serena says, that's not really what I came here for. And June says, it's clear that men hate us in this world, and you've got to try harder. And Serena admits that she's scared, but you've got to use that. You've got to make lemons out of lemonade. And that's pretty much what June does, because she picks 5 women from the airport to be Martha's. And she picks wisely. She goes to the Martha in her own house and says, I have 5 new women for the resistance. An engineer, an IT tech, a journalist, a lawyer, and a thief.